All right, we're going to build the most basic modal we can for a simple terms of service link. This is all dummy content, but in my experience, the simplest need for a modal in any application I've ever built is just showing terms of service in a pop-up dialog when somebody clicks it on a sign-up page. So let's look at the app. Here's our welcome.blade.php. This is the HTML file that the browser is loading. It's really simple. The only thing you need to know here is I'm including Tailwind as this little CDN just for development purposes. This screencast course is going to use Tailwind. If you're not familiar with it, go check it out. If you use one of Laravel's starter kits to create your project, it comes shipped with Tailwind. Otherwise, it's pretty easy to install. So I have this Livewire component called signup, and signup really is nothing. This is just a hollow shell. Let's look at the Blade view, signup.blade.php. This is just a bunch of boilerplate HTML with Tailwind. Let's start your journey, sign up for a new component just to get this on the page. What we care about is this terms of service button. This whole episode is just going to center around this piece of HTML because we want this to actually open a modal. So how do we build a modal? This is a complicated topic, and there's a lot of do's and don'ts and pitfalls for something that's seemingly simple. It seems like you should be able to just hit this button and show a div that shows your content, but it's way deeper than that. So deep, in fact, that I would caution you in general against using modals if you can. This is a scenario where I think I want to see a modal, but you could still have a user click this and open up the terms of service in a separate tab, or take them to the terms of service page, or show it in line. There's all sorts of things you can do to avoid using modals. There's even people who've created websites called like don't use modals and all the alternatives you should use instead. So with that caution out of the way, let's actually build a modal. So there is actually an element inside browsers now. It's supported in most modern, actually all modern browsers, called dialog, where you can just put some content. So let's say some content here. And if we load the page, we're not going to see some content because it's in this dialog element. If you add the open attribute, it will now be open. But that's not actually the best way to open this dialog. That just shows it on the page. If you use JavaScript to open the dialog, let me show you this. So if I'm in the DevTools and I hit this arrow and let's click on this button, we'll find dialog right here, some content. Let's open this with JavaScript, $0 to get that element, show modal. Okay, so now it does something a lot different. Instead of just showing a dialog, it turns it into a modal, which means it consumes the whole page and does all sorts of interesting things that are pretty hard to do on your own. For example, autofocus. If you have like an input in here that's autofocused, it will get autofocused when it's shown. Focus, like if you hit tab, it's not going to focus other elements on the page. It's only going to focus what's inside your dialog. And that stuff is really hard to do on your own. So it's not that hard to actually style this dialog element using Tailwind. You could say BG white, give it some padding, make it rounded, add a shadow, and you can even customize the color of the backdrop. You could say like backdrop, BG gray 500, and then half opacity. And let's just see what that looks like now. Oh, we got to open it with JavaScript again. So let's go ahead and get that dialog element right here. Okay. And then open it. And there we go. It actually looks like a decent modal. And it has, again, all those features that are really hard to build on your own. You can hit escape and it'll close it. So it's pretty nice. You could easily wrap this up in some Alpine JS to, when you click this button to get this element and then call show modal on it. But let me tell you why I'm not sure if you should use it, because it takes a lot of customization to do things you want. Let me show you an example. If we fill this some content with all of our terms of service, so the actual content of the terms of service, let's open up that modal one more time. Let's check this out. We got to get that dialog. It's kind of annoying. Sorry. Get the dialog, then hit show modal. Okay. Notice this. There's a few things that I don't like about this. One, you can actually scroll the background, and that's not ideal. In general, you want to disable scrolling in the background, but also it puts it inside this container where the modal is scrollable. It doesn't really let you have a modal that is full size and then you scroll the modal. So this is kind of weird behavior. It's not ideal. And to make it do everything you want to do, like adding animations for the modal to come in and come out, and hijacking scroll or disabling scroll on the body, there's so many things where this starts to break down. But I wanted to mention it because you're going to get a lot out of the box for free if you just use a dialog element. So go for it if that's what you want. But we're not going to do that. So what are we going to do? Well, we could hand roll our own modal with Alpine, and let me just show you very simply how you could do that. Let's wrap this in a div and make this an Alpine component. And we could say open is equal to false. Okay, and then we have this button, and we could say x on clicks. When we click this button, set open equal to true. And then we'll make a div here, and this is going to be our modal. We'll say x show open. Okay, and then inside here we can do all of our Tailwind for an overlay, like fixed, inset 0 to make it full width, flex, justify. There's so many things you could do to make this. Let's actually do it. Justify center, items center, and this is going to center all the contents. And then here we can have our div that's actually like BG white, rounded XL, shadow XL, or whatever you want to do, and P8. And now in here, let's just say some content. And let's see if this worked. I'm kind of just shooting from the hip here. And let's hit terms of service. And there we go. We haven't added a backdrop. I mean, it's not hard to do that. BG gray 550. Okay, and let's see that. All right, so we have a modal, and this looks pretty much the same as it did before. And we're not going to have that like content issue where if we have all the terms of service that it won't be scrollable, but we lost all the other accessibility things that dialog gave us. Now if we tab, we're tabbing through our page, which is not what we want. Autofocus isn't going to work. It's still not like disabling the scroll on the parent container there. The list goes on and on. It's not accessible to make it accessible. You have to have things like aria modal true, or like role equals, I forget. Like you have to know all this stuff. Maybe it's aria dialogue. Who knows? But you have to have like role, dialogue, maybe, whatever. I'm not going to sit here and guess them all, but you have to have a bunch of accessibility attributes. And then again, all that stuff I just mentioned, scroll hijacking and focus trapping, all that is really hard to build. So what is the answer here? I think the answer is I'm going to build it for you, and you can just copy it out of this course and use it in your own apps, because I think that's really the move here. So I'm going to show you the way that I'm not going to actually build it out for you. I'm just going to paste it in this page so that we have a launching point for this course. And this is going to be the bedrock. You can take this modal and bring it to any application you want with you, and you'll just know that it's reliable and handles all those things. So there's one thing we need to do before we build out that modal. We need to include a CDN for Alpine's UI package. You don't have to really know what this is. I'm going to tell you a secret. Here's the secret. If you go to Alpine's docs and then you access the components inside Alpine's docs, apparently my internet's slow right now. There are components and they cost money, but I'm going to give you one for free. So if we actually go to the dialog modal component, why is my internet so slow? I'm so sorry. If we go to the modal component, we have a modal built for us. And really, I'm just copying and pasting all the code that's required. So this is a paid component that normally you have to pay for, but I'm just going to give it to you for free so that we can get up and running with this series. So again, go to the code for this course, copy this snippet and include this in your application, preferably in the head. If you do exactly this in your application, you'll be good to go. Now we can actually use that modal. All right, instead of drawing it all out for you, we're just going to paste it in. Modal robust. Okay. So this is the full modal that does everything we want. And you don't have to understand everything about it, but let me just show you that it's very similar to the basic modal we created earlier. We have xData open is false, onClick open is true, and then here's the modal. There's some special things like xDialog. This gives us all the accessibility stuff. But we have xModel open to toggle that open and closed, and a few other things. An overlay is built for us. The panel is built for us. A close button is built for us. And all we need to do is pop our button here, this terms of service. We're going to put it inside this little button placeholder here. Okay, and let's load this on the page and see what happens. If I click terms of service, there we go. We have a nice modal with nice animations. If I tab, tabbing is locked. It's not going to tab the page behind. I can't scroll the page behind. I'll show you that if I open DevTools. You can't scroll the page behind, which is exactly what we want. So this answers all our questions, solves all our problems. Let's actually put the terms of service into this content here. And now we hit terms of service and check that out. We got our terms of service. We can scroll that content. We can hit escape to exit it. We can hit this X to exit it. It fades in and out really nicely. And this is basically exactly what you want for a situation like this. So that's going to be our launching point. This is our modal that we built. In the next episode, we're going to extract it into a reusable blade component so that we can use this in a bunch of different places in our project and not have to write out this whole bit or copy and paste it, blah, blah, blah. So I'll see you in the next video.